Sit quietly for a moment and look around your space. The walls that surround you are not silent, they speak, they hold memory, they carry energy. Many people decorate their homes with care for beauty, but forget to care for the unseen currents that flow through color. What you place on your walls does not only please the eyes, it also influences the mind, the heart, and the subtle rhythm of your life. There are colors that soothe, colors that awaken, and there are colors that quietly disturb the inner balance, not because they are evil, but because they are misused, misunderstood, or placed without awareness. When chosen without intention, some shades can create heaviness, restlessness, or even invite patterns of misfortune. Consider first the overuse of dark gray. When gray becomes too dominant, it dulls the spirit. It is the color of indecision, of clouds that refuse to rain. A little gray can bring elegance, but too much can trap the mind in stagnation, where ideas fade before they are born. Then there is deep, lifeless black covering large spaces. Black is powerful, but power without balance becomes overwhelming. When a room is swallowed in darkness, it may begin to mirror the same darkness in thought. Fear, doubt, and isolation quietly grow. Be cautious also with harsh, aggressive red used without care. Red carries fire, passion, and intensity. But when it is too strong or placed in spaces meant for rest, it can ignite anger, impatience, and conflict. Fire must be respected, not allowed to burn endlessly. A sickly or faded yellow could also disturb harmony. Instead of warmth, it creates unease. It resembles decay rather than light, leaving the mind restless, unable to find peace or clarity. Excessive muddy brown can anchor energy too heavily. While earth tones can ground you, too much of this dull shade may feel like being stuck in place, unable to move forward. As if life itself becomes slow and burdened. Cold, artificial blue, especially overly sharp or neon tones, can create emotional distance. It cools not only the room but also the connections within it, making relationships feel distant and communications strained. And finally, chaotic mixtures of too many clashing colors. When there is no harmony, the mind cannot settle. Confusion outside becomes confusion within. Energy scatters, and with it, focus and intention. Understand this clearly: it is not the color itself that brings misfortune, but the imbalance it creates within you. When the mind is disturbed, choices become unclear. When choices become unclear, life begins to feel difficult. This is what people call bad luck. So choose your colors as you would choose your thoughts, with awareness, with balance, with calm intention. Let your space breathe. Let it support stillness, clarity, and gentle energy. When your surroundings are in harmony, your inner world begins to align. And when the inner world is steady, what once felt like bad luck quietly fades away. Colors influence energy and mindset. Wall colors don't just affect appearance, they impact emotions, thoughts, and the overall energy flow of a space. Look closely at the space you live in, not just with your eyes, but with your awareness. The walls around you may seem still and lifeless, yet they quietly shape your thoughts, your emotions, and even your daily actions. Color is not merely decoration, it is a subtle language that speaks directly to the mind. Every shade carries a vibration, and every vibration leaves an imprint on how you feel without you even realizing it. When you wake up in a room, your first thoughts are not always your own, they are influenced by the environment you are surrounded by. A space filled with heavy or dull colors can make the mind feel slow, unmotivated, and unclear. You may think you are simply tired or lacking discipline, but in truth, your surroundings may be quietly draining your mental energy. In the same way, a space that feels too intense or chaotic can create restlessness, making it difficult for the mind to settle into peace. The human mind is deeply connected to what it sees every day. If your environment reflects imbalance, your inner world begins to mirror that same imbalance. A room that feels too dark can make your thoughts feel heavy. A room that feels too bright or aggressive can keep your mind in a constant state of tension. Over time, this subtle influence begins to affect your decisions, your mood, and even your relationships with others. This is why many people feel uncomfortable in certain places without knowing why. They enter a room and feel uneasy, distracted, or drained, even if everything appears visually acceptable. The reason lies beneath the surface. The colors, the tones, and their combinations are sending signals to the mind, shaping emotions in ways that are not always obvious. When the mind is influenced in this way, it begins to lose clarity. Decisions become harder, focus weakens, and patience fades. Small problems begin to feel larger, and simple tasks feel overwhelming. This is often misunderstood as bad luck or unfortunate circumstances, but in many cases it is simply the result of a disturbed inner state created by the environment. On the other hand, when colors are chosen with awareness, something shifts quietly. A balanced space does not demand attention, it allows the mind to rest. It supports clarity, calmness, and steady thinking. In such an environment, actions become more thoughtful, reactions become more controlled, and life begins to feel more manageable. You do not need luxury or expensive decoration to create this harmony. What is needed is intention. When you choose colors, ask yourself how they make you feel, not just how they look. Pay attention to the energy they bring into your space. Even small changes can create a noticeable difference in your mood and mental state. Over time, as your surroundings begin to support rather than disturb your mind, you will notice a change not only within your space but within yourself. Your thoughts become clearer, your emotions more balanced, and your actions more aligned. What once felt like bad luck slowly disappears, not because something outside has changed, but because the environment within and around you has come into harmony. Imbalancing colors creates negative effects. It's not the colors themselves, but their overuse or improper placement that leads to stress, stagnation, or emotional disturbance. Many people believe that misfortune arrives suddenly, like a storm with no warning. But if you observe carefully, you will see that what we call bad luck often begins in small, unnoticed imbalances. One of these imbalances lies quietly in the spaces we occupy every day. The colors around us, when chosen without awareness, can slowly disturb the natural rhythm of the mind. It is important to understand that no color is truly harmful on its own. Each shade carries its own nature, its own energy. The problem begins when a color is used in excess, placed without thought, or chosen for appearance alone rather than feeling. When balance is lost, the mind begins to react in subtle ways. Take, for example, a room filled heavily with dark gray or lifeless tones. At first, it may seem modern or calm, but over time it can begin to weigh on the mind. Gray lacks direction. It neither uplifts nor comforts. When surrounded by too much of it, a person may feel stuck, unable to move forward with clarity or motivation. This is how stagnation quietly takes root. In another case, a space dominated by deep black may feel powerful, but it can also become overwhelming. Black absorbs everything around it: light, energy, and attention. When overused, it can create a sense of isolation, making thoughts feel heavier and emotions harder to express. A person may withdraw without understanding why. Then there is intense red, often associated with energy and strength. While it can inspire action, too much of it can overstimulate the mind. In spaces meant for rest or peace, strong red can create tension, impatience, and even conflict between people. The mind remains alert when it should be calm, and over time this imbalance leads to irritation and emotional unrest. Even colors meant to bring happiness, like yellow, can have the opposite effect when used incorrectly. A faded or harsh yellow does not resemble sunlight, it resembles discomfort. Instead of warmth, it creates unease, making it difficult for the mind to relax or focus. Earthy tones like brown, when used excessively and without variation, can make a space feel heavy and limiting. Rather than grounding a person, it can make them feel stuck, as if progress is slow or blocked. Similarly, overly cold or artificial blues can create emotional distance, making a space feel unwelcoming and disconnected. When too many colors are mixed without harmony, the effect becomes even more disturbing. The mind struggles to find balance in chaos. Attention scatters, focus weakens, and a sense of confusion begins to grow. In such an environment, even simple decisions can feel overwhelming. Over time, these small disturbances accumulate. The mind becomes restless or dull, emotions become unstable, and actions lose clarity. This chain reaction is often mistaken for bad luck, but in truth it is the natural outcome of living in an environment that quietly disrupts inner balance. When you begin to see this clearly, you also begin to understand that change is within your control. By bringing awareness to the colors in your space and choosing balance over excess, you create a foundation for a calmer and more focused mind. And when the mind is steady, what once felt like misfortune begins to lose its power. Certain colors can disturb mental harmony: dark gray, excessive black, harsh red, dull yellow, muddy brown, cold blue, and clashing combinations can create heaviness, conflict, or confusion. There are moments when a person feels unsettled without any clear reason. Nothing dramatic has happened, yet the mind feels tense, the heart feels heavy, and even small interactions begin to carry irritation. In such moments, people often look outward for answers, believing that circumstances or other people are the cause. But often the disturbance begins much closer in the very environment they live in. Certain colors, when used without awareness, can quietly disrupt mental harmony. This disturbance does not happen suddenly, it builds slowly, like a whisper that grows louder over time. A room painted in overly dark or dull tones can make the mind feel enclosed, as if there is no space to breathe or expand. This feeling of confinement does not stay in the room, it follows you into your thoughts, limiting creativity and reducing clarity. On the other side, colors that are too intense or aggressive can overstimulate the senses. Instead of providing comfort, they keep the mind alert and restless. Imagine trying to rest in a space that constantly demands your attention. The eyes may adjust, but the mind does not fully relax. Over time, this leads to impatience, quick reactions, and a lack of emotional control. The effect becomes even more noticeable in shared spaces. When the environment carries imbalance, it influences not just one person but everyone within it. Conversations become sharper, misunderstandings arise more easily, and harmony between people begins to weaken. What seems like personal conflict is often amplified by the space that surrounds those interactions. Another subtle effect is the way these colors influence decision-making. A disturbed environment leads to a disturbed mind, and a disturbed mind struggles to see clearly. Choices become reactive rather than thoughtful. People may act out of frustration, fear, or confusion and later wonder why things did not turn out well. This pattern repeats, creating the illusion that life itself is working against them. In truth, what is being experienced is not bad luck, but the natural result of imbalance. When the mind is constantly influenced by surroundings that do not support calmness and clarity, it begins to lose its natural stability. Without stability, even simple situations feel complicated, and small challenges appear larger than they truly are. Yet the moment awareness enters, this cycle can begin to change. When you recognize that your environment is shaping your inner state, you regain a sense of control. You begin to see that harmony outside supports harmony within. By choosing colors that create balance rather than disturbance, you allow the mind to settle naturally. In a balanced space, thoughts flow more clearly, emotions become steady, and interactions soften. Life does not become perfect, but it becomes easier to navigate. And what once felt like a series of unfortunate events begins to transform into a path guided by clarity, patience, and quiet understanding. Environment shapes inner state. When surroundings feel heavy or chaotic, the mind becomes restless, affecting decisions and leading to what people perceive as bad luck. When people speak of bad luck, they often imagine something mysterious, something beyond their control. They blame fate, timing, or unseen forces that seem to work against them. But if one looks with deeper awareness, it becomes clear that what we call bad luck is often the result of small imbalances that have been ignored for too long. One of the quiet contributors to this imbalance is the environment we create around ourselves, especially through color. The space you live in is not separate from you. It reflects your inner state, and at the same time it shapes it. When colors in your surroundings are chosen without mindfulness, they begin to influence your thoughts in subtle but powerful ways. You may not notice it at first, but over time the effect becomes visible in your mood, your energy, and your decisions. A room filled with heavy or dull colors can slowly drain your sense of motivation. You may find yourself delaying tasks, losing focus, or feeling mentally tired without any clear reason. This is not laziness, it is the mind responding to an environment that does not inspire movement or clarity. When the surroundings feel stagnant, the mind begins to mirror that same stillness in an unhealthy way. In contrast, a space that is too intense or filled with clashing colors can overwhelm the senses. Instead of feeling supported, the mind feels pressured. There is no place for rest, no sense of ease. This constant stimulation creates inner tension, making it difficult to think calmly or act patiently. Over time, this tension may show itself in the form of stress, irritation, or conflict with others. Relationships are also affected by such environments. When the mind is unsettled, communication becomes less thoughtful. Words are spoken quickly, reactions become sharper, and misunderstandings grow. People may believe that the problem lies in others, but often the environment is quietly amplifying these negative patterns. Another important effect is on awareness itself. When you live in a space that disturbs your balance, you become less mindful. Your actions become automatic rather than intentional. You react instead of responding with clarity. In this state, mistakes are more likely to happen, and these mistakes are often labeled as bad luck. But when you begin to bring awareness to your surroundings, a shift starts to occur. Choosing colors with care, creating harmony instead of chaos, and allowing space for calmness can transform not just the room but your inner experience. The mind becomes lighter, more present, and more capable of handling challenges with ease. In such a state, life begins to flow differently. You make clearer decisions, your interactions improve, and situations that once felt difficult become manageable. It is not that luck has suddenly changed, but that your inner balance has been restored. And when there is balance within, the world around you begins to reflect that same sense of peace. Awareness and balance bring positive change. Choosing colors mindfully and creating harmony in your space can lead to inner clarity, emotional peace, and a more positive life experience. In the end, everything returns to awareness. People often search for ways to change their lives by looking outward, seeking new opportunities, new strategies, or even blaming unseen forces for their struggles. Yet, they overlook the simple truth that the environment they live in quietly shapes their inner world every single day. Among all the elements of a space, color is one of the most subtle yet powerful influences. When you begin to choose colors with awareness, you are not just decorating a room, you are creating a foundation for your thoughts and emotions. A balanced space does not demand attention or overwhelm the senses. Instead, it supports you silently. It allows your mind to rest when it needs rest and to focus when it needs clarity. This is the kind of environment where inner stability begins to grow. Without awareness, however, the opposite happens. A room filled with heavy, dull, or clashing colors creates a quiet disturbance. At first, it may feel insignificant, something easy to ignore. But day after day, this disturbance accumulates. The mind becomes slightly more restless, slightly more tired, slightly more distracted. These small shifts may seem harmless, but over time they shape how you think, how you act, and how you respond to life. When the mind is not at ease, decisions lose their clarity. You may hesitate when you should act, or act impulsively when patience is needed. Opportunities may be missed, not because they were not there, but because your state of mind was not ready to recognize them. This is how imbalance begins to appear as bad luck. It is not that life is working against you, it is that your inner state is not aligned with what is in front of you. As awareness grows, a different path becomes visible. You begin to notice how certain colors make you feel calm while others create tension. You start to understand that harmony is not about following trends or copying what others do, but about creating a space that supports your own balance. Even small adjustments, a softer tone, a more natural shade, a reduction in visual chaos can begin to shift your experience. This shift is gentle but powerful. A balanced environment encourages a balanced mind. When the mind is balanced, thoughts become clearer, emotions become steadier, and actions become more intentional. You respond to situations with calmness rather than reaction. You begin to see solutions where before you saw any problems. Over time, life starts to feel different. Challenges still exist, but they no longer feel overwhelming. Decisions come with more confidence, and relationships become smoother because you are no longer carrying unnecessary tension within you. What once felt like repeated misfortune begins to fade away. In this way, the idea of bad luck loses its hold. You begin to see that much of what you experience is connected to the state of your own mind and the environment that shapes it. By bringing awareness to something as simple as color, you take a quiet but meaningful step toward creating harmony in your life. And from that harmony, a sense of ease, clarity, and quiet strength naturally begins to grow.